there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, part 2 of our dowel making jig for the router table. Okay, well last week we constructed this puppy, and what this is the base for our dowel making jig, and this is it. This is the whole thing. Last week's video completed this piece, and by now it's a week later, and if you've made one, your glue should all be dry and everything should be fantastic and you should be ready to go. The only thing I don't have in here at the moment is those 5/16 of an inch T-bolts, but that's going to come later. Where we want to start today is with the construction of the center doweling blocks. But first, let me tell you a bit about the blocks. Well, we're talking about the doweling blocks. It's not a technical name, it's what I call them. And it's essentially a block of wood. And I would recommend maple. You want a hardwood that could take some abuse. And maple, I have found, really lasts a long time. Because eventually, over time, using these to make dowels, they do wear, and the holes become a little larger than you'd like, or elongated, or what have you, and the block becomes a little less accurate. And at that point in time, it's really time to replace that block. But I'm going to let you know that for every size dowel that you want to make, you require a block for that size dowel. It's almost like a die for that dowel sort of thing. So as long as you think in that terms, or in those terms, then you know what you're getting into and it's no big deal. Setup becomes easy if you label the blocks properly. So let's go over to the bench, and I'm going to show you how to mark these blocks and how to get them set and drilled to be able to use them in the dowel jig. Well, the first thing that you're going to want to do is get a block of maple. And what we've got here for this block is it's 4 inches long, end to end. It is 1 7/8 of an inch wide, and its height is 1 5/8 of an inch. So 4 inches long, 1 7/8 wide, and it's 1 5/8 tall. And what we've done is we've drilled these holes. Now, these holes will be the same size as the ones that we drilled in the base piece. And I believe I drilled these a little larger because they allow for a little bit of adjustment. But let me just measure just to be sure here. And these are 5/16 of an inch in diameter. And they're centered on the 1 7/8 inch side, and they're a 1/2 inch in from each side of these blocks. And then by doing that, 1/2 inch in and centered on the 1 7/8 side, these holes will coincide completely with the holes that you drilled for your T-bolts. Once you get these blocks cut and your holes for your T-bolts drilled, you want to drill an access hole into the bottom of this unit. And this hole is 5/8 of an inch wide, and it will get drilled to half the depth of this block. So 1/2 of the depth it will get drilled in. And what that is for the router bit to go up into. Now, it's easy for me to understand how this works and to know all about it, but sometimes it's hard to explain it. So I'm going to do my best here, and hopefully you guys will follow along. The other size of the hole that you need to be concerned about is the size of the exit hole. The exit hole in this jig, again, is drilled halfway into the distance of the block. At the back end of this dowel making block, it's the exit hole, and it coincides with the size of the dowel that you wish to make. And in this case, that hole is 3/16 of an inch. On the import side, you need to drill another hole half the distance in to this block. And that particular hole, it's a funny measurement, and it's a custom measurement, and it depends on what size of stock you want to use to make your dowel. So in this size, or in this instance here, let me just move this aside, and I've done a little drawing to show you. I've decided that I want to make my dowels out of 3/8 by 3/8 stock, and for most of the dowels that's what I do, just because no matter what size, unless they're a larger size, but for the most part I just have to cut some scrap 3/8 by 3/8 and I can go ahead and make whatever dowel I want. The problem is that 3/8 by 3/8 stock does not equal the size of the import hole. It won't fit. So what you need is the corner to corner measurement, and in this case it's 9/16. But depending on what size stock you wish to start with, that measurement can change. So if you're using 3/8 by 3/8 stock, this measurement is actually 9/16. So the way the whole process goes is you will cut the block. It'll be 1 5/8 tall, 1 7/8 wide, 4 inches long. You will drill your 5/16 of an inch holes centered on the 1 7/8 inch side and 1/2 an inch in from each end. Those will be through holes. The next hole you'll want to do is on the underside, and this will be the hole for your router bit, and it will be centered on the 4-inch length, so 2 inches in the middle, and then it will also be centered on the 1 7/8 inch side. So this hole for the router bit will get drilled to a depth of half the distance into this block, and it will stop at that distance. The next hole that you want to drill will be your entry hole, and of course it will be centered on the block, and it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that you're accurate with this drilling. So if you can use a router fence to help you out, do it. It'll go a long way to getting this right on the money. And don't forget depth stops on your drill press, because that's going to help you get exactly to half the distance. But what you want to do is this length here, 2 inches in the middle and centered on your 1 5/8 side. You want to drill your entry hole, now whatever measurement you came up with here for your beginning stock, in this case 9/16, that will get drilled down through to the distance of half down into this 1 7/8 inch side. At that point you stop, remove your drill bit, and if you're using a fence, this is where it becomes easy. Now you install the size of the dowel that you wish to make. In this case 3/16 inch bit. You change up your bit and finish the hole through all the way out to the back end. I hope that made sense, because at this point my head is killing me. So let me see if I can explain how this whole system works. And what we've got here is, I'll draw out a cross section of our block. I know, it's not very square. Someone didn't check to make sure their blade was square to the table. Anyway, your router bit will come up here, and it will adjust however it needs to adjust. And you're using a straight bit to cut the dowels for this. Your holes, this will be your entry hole, and this is exaggerated. It's not to scale before somebody decides to freak out. Your entry hole for your stock is here. Your exit hole is here, and the bottom of your exit hole will align with the top of your router bit. Now what happens here is your stock is installed into a cordless drill, and it is fed into your block this way with the drill rotating and the router table on. And as the stock rotates into this bit, it removes this section, which will also remove this section because it's rotating. The final dimension will then go into your exit port and stabilize it. And as it comes out now, your router bit will continue to trim the dowel into whatever size this is, provided that you have lined up your router bit to be the same height as the bottom of your exit hole. I know it sounds confusing, but maybe it's easier if I just show you how to do it on the router table. So let's head over there and I'll show you how to set this up. Well, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to install your router bit. And in this case, I'm using a 1/2 inch straight bit. This is for a 1/2 inch collet. So we're just going to raise the router up, put the router bit in, and I have a quick connect unit for my router. So just like that, the router bit is installed, and we're just going to lower it down somewhat into the table. Not all the way though, because of course we need to set it up for the jig. So the first thing that you want to do now, after you get your router bit installed, is you want to get those T-bolts sitting in place in your base for the jig that we made last week. And this section here, these back fences coincide with the back of your router table fence. So that is the outfeed. So the small hole of your router block will go at the back of this jig, and of course the hole for the router bit will be on the bottom. I kind of hope that goes without saying, but you never know. So a couple of 5/16 washers and a couple of jig knobs will go nicely to hold this block in place. And if you remember, what I did was I said to extend these lines. And the reason for that is there is a little bit of adjustment that can be done to get this centered up on the jigs. So you want to line up those lines and tighten down your knob, making sure that the back of the block is flush with the back of your jig fence. The next thing you want to do is set the height of your router bit. And the way it gets set is this is your exit hole, this is the bottom of your jig. The top of your router bit gets set to the bottom of the exit hole. And one of the easiest ways I found to do that is to put a piece of dowel in here and raise your bit up until it touches that dowel. Unfortunately, I don't have any 3/16 dowel left, hence why I'm running this size. So we could install a 3/16 inch drill bit, put the jig down in place, and raise our bit until it touches that drill bit. Once it touches, your height is set, remove your drill bit, and we can carry on. We've got our block in place, we've got our drill bit height set. Now we need to sit our jig down over top of the router bit, and with a couple of quick grip clamps we're gonna seal this in place to the fence. Now you can see here where making sure that things were square would be important, because if this thing isn't square now, we're going to be routing and cutting at an angle, because as this tightens it to the fence, it's going to be trying to tip it, and it's not going to be pretty. So everything is tightened down now. We've got our jig attached to the fence. And now what we need to do is run a test piece. But before we do, let's get some dust collection on this back port. Well, I'm going to try to do this real time so that you guys can see the adjustment process. I think I've only ever had it once where the router bit was set up perfectly on the first shot. There's always a little bit of adjustment, so have a couple extra pieces of stock because you're going to waste at least one trying to set up the height of the router bit. So we got some 3/8 by 3/8. In this case it's poplar because that's what I need. And you can see this is the little turn plug that I was talking about that I've turned to cover up that adjustment hole. But I'm not going to run the dust collection because of course it'll be too loud to be able to hear me over the video. But what you start off with is getting this piece of stock chucked up in your cordless drill. Just like that. The next thing now, you saw the original height adjustment. It's still set up for that. So we're going to fire up the router table and run our stock through the import hole. And we'll check with calipers there, and we're at 11/64. So this bit is way too high. It's cutting the dowel way too small. So we're going to lower this down just a touch, like that. Put our pin back in. Now for this, just snap off your test piece and try it again. I don't know if you can see that. That's 3/16 with one adjustment. That's all it took. So if you're not sure, you don't believe me, there you go. There's 0 on the calipers. Open it up and 3/16 of an inch. I'm telling you, man, this jig is awesome. For my liking, I like to do the dowel just a little bit bigger. And then of course I can adjust it with sandpaper to get right to the piece or to the size I want. So let me just show you how fast you can fire a dowel through this thing and make 2 dowels this size. But this time I'm going to turn the dust collection on. And as fast as that, you've got the dowel, and then a quick sanding. Will bring your dowel down to the size that you wish. And that size, in this case, of course, is 3/16 of an inch. And I just want to show you, I left it a little bigger, but look at the quality of that dowel. I mean, it's not pitted, it's not misshapen, it's not warped, and it was made out of a piece of scrap. And you saw how fast it went through the jig. I like these flat areas that got chucked up in the drill because I can write the size on these and stick them in a can, and this sticks out and I can see at a glance exactly what size the dowels are. But there you go, from a piece of wood that would have been thrown out or burnt normally into a very usable, perfectly sized piece of poplar dowel. And there you have it. A dowel making jig for your router table. Guys, by far, bar none, my absolute favorite jig in the shop is this puppy. Does a great job. I absolutely hate the dowel that you get from the big box stores. They're never the right size. They never have the right species. They're just a mess. They're just a waste of my time and a waste of my money. But with this simple jig and a minimum amount of material, you can turn your scrap into usable pieces of dowel of any size, of the proper size, and of any species that you want. If you need walnut dowel, turn walnut. If you need oak, do oak, maple, poplar, pine. Although I don't know how well that would survive twisting in the jig, but either way, give it a try. One piece of advice while learning how to set it up: on the exit hole, the maple can have a tendency to burn your dowels. If that's the case, you are cutting them too large and there's not enough slip in that exit hole, and that's what's causing the burning. Lower your bit, raise your bit just a touch, and you can use a little bit of paste wax as well to lubricate that exit hole and allow the dowels to come out a little easier without burning. As well, there's some people that have said about my jig, you know, it comes out through right into that vacuum hose. That doesn't make any sense. I support the vacuum hose off the back of the table so it lies horizontal, so that dowel, regardless of the length, just carries on through into the hose without a problem. I've never had a problem with it, and I can't see myself having a problem. If you're really that concerned, have it so that your dowel goes across your table instead of front to back. Just make some adjustments to the design that I've given you. Either way, guys, it's a great project. It's a great jig. Man, why wouldn't you make one? Turn your stock into usable dowels and quit wasting your money on the crap that they sell at these big box stores. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you again next week with yet another woodworking video.